Thank you to Mandy and all the Farm Bureau members who reserved the space tonight, helped us to set this up. We really appreciate it. This, of course, is a really important topic, and we're excited to share it. And this is just the start of the conversation. As you probably picked up in the back, everyone hopefully has one of my cards. We've also got some more over here that has all of our contact information on it, including my cell phone. So if you ever have any issues, feel free to text, call, however best to get a hold of us, and we'll be happy to help in whatever way we can. So we'll begin tonight with some of our different staffers here. We have a few people from our office, but first, Heather Hall is going to present. Heather's been with our office since 2013. She's probably, many of you have actually talked on the phone with her. She's our CAUV guru, so her and Katie Stokes will be out in the field checking and saying hello, driving around in our Jeep. And then also Dennis Huey, who is our real estate manager, will be speaking as well. Dennis has been an appraiser for over 40 years, also been a township trustee for 16 years, so very experienced, and he heads up our real estate division in the auditor's office. So we'll be talking, and then afterwards we'll get to questions. We'll be presenting on each of the different topics that kind of folks have brought up as important issues to discuss. And after each topic, we'll ask for questions. So that way it's fresh in your mind. You've all hopefully got some paper in front of you. You can write down questions too. And if we can't get to all of them, we want to make sure that we're timely tonight. I'll be around afterwards. You have our contact information to reach out if you do need anything. So that's kind of the agenda for the evening. And then following, we've got some individual property discussions. If you registered to talk about your property, we'll be happy to do that with you as well. So first up is going to be Heather talking about the CAUV program.
Hi guys. So what is CAUV? So it's actually a program that's devoted for farmland, exclusively for commercial agriculture. It's instead of like its highest and best use.
You can just start dancing with them.
What CAUV means is current agricultural use value. And it's set where your market value or your value is based lower than the market value. So it actually means that you save a lot more on your tax bill. So we roughly have about 2,172 people enrolled into the CAUV program. And there's about, over 4,300 parcels that are on CAUV. So it's a lot of farmland that we have to go and inspect every summer. So it's a lot of time in the vehicle. The total market agricultural land value, you see that that's quite a bit of value. It's a lot less than what market value is. And we have 17 people in Ag District, and I'm sure you guys probably saw a bunch of the Ag District applications up front. If they're out, let me know. You can reach it on our website, or you can contact me, and I can email you out an Ag District application. Qualifications for CAUV. You must meet some of the following requirements: that you have to have 3 years or more devoted for commercial agriculture. You have to have 10 acres or more devoted for CAUV. And if you don't, if you have less than 10 acres, then you have to show proof of income of gross of $2,500. And you only can get those acres on CAUV. Some of the things that are on CAUV that qualify are commercial agriculture is animal husbandry, agriculture, which is farming of algae. You have aquaculture, which is fish and different kind of organisms for sea life. You have apiculture, which is also beekeeping, and commercial timber, tobacco, nursery stock, fruits, vegetables, flowers, to name a few. And David for the formula.
So, who here understands the CAUV formula? Very, very well. Exactly. Just like any government program that's run by the state, sometimes it's very convoluted, it lags behind, and it needs a little bit of touch-up here and there. So we're going to touch a little bit on the formula. I encourage you, if you have ideas, want to have more conversations on the formula itself, definitely follow up with our office, but also contact your state rep and your state senator in the Department of Agriculture, because these conversations need to be constantly happening. I know they're happening at the state level, but so they're based on the soil districts. Now, if you go on our website, Alex Arochi's here actually from our office. He handles our website and our GIS, and you can actually see all the different types of soil here in the county that we base the formula on for what your area is in. And there's about 3,500 soil types in the state, and those are updated every 3 years, and those will be updated next year, 2020. And we'll be getting to that a little bit later in the presentation. It's based on a formula for 5 different factors from 3 different crops that are most prevalent here in the state. Now, hay was dropped from the formula back in 2010, but those 3 crops are corn, soybeans, and wheat. So some of the different 5 factors, we can just go through all 5 of them. Our cropping pattern, crop prices, crop yields, non-land production costs,
Sorry.
you're good, and the capitalization rate. So these are all very detailed ways for the state to be able to come up with what exactly the market rate could be for what exactly you're producing at what time. Ultimately, the goal, the idea is that you can save money versus what the actual land value would be to the highest and best use. So you compare what you're doing farming versus, let's say, a developer or other construction. And ideally, you're able to save some money that way. It's important, unfortunately, and I know Fred and I and a few others have talked about this, you cannot appeal your CAUV value. That's set by the state. We're only told what the values are here in our office. We can't, I'd love to have you go through board revisions, it's a fun time, but we can't have you go through board revisions for CAUV. Those are set by the state. Now, I can see there's different proposals out there, maybe to have a revision rate to the state for actual values and to appeal some of those. I think certainly we all could have used that a few years ago. But as of right now, the rates are set by the state, and we just apply them administratively.
Okay, we're going to talk about the initial application. So if there's some of you guys that are out there that aren't on CAUV and are looking to get on the program, here's some qualifications. It needs to be filled out before, after the first Monday in March, or January, and you have until the first Monday in March to fill out an application. What you'll need is a 3-year history of the property. They're going to ask, how many acres are in what the last 3 years were. If you're less than 10 acres, you'll need to show proof of income. They're going to ask you, how much did you gross the last 3 years? And if you are not the one that's farming the property, then they'll need the farmer's information, their name and phone number. And there's a $25 application fee. So here's kind of what our application looks like. At the top 2, you need your owner's information, parcel number, acres, the total amount of acres at the top. And then you see number 4, where it kind of says what the last 3 years were, the land use at the large table, and then underneath is where the farmer information and signature and date is. We'll also need a map. So if there's some of the property that we can't quite tell on an aerial photo, then we will need a map kind of showing where you're farming. Sometimes when we're out in the field, we can't quite see everything, so it's kind of easy for us to see on the map. The renewal application needs to be renewed every year. We'll send that out at the beginning of every year, probably about January. Make sure you fill out the phone number, which I wish I could reach, but at the top right-hand corner where it has application number, it's going to ask for phone number or email. And then you'll need a number, up at number 1, where it has your parcel number and acres. I know a lot of you guys, I'm not sure if some of you guys here, but we're kind of questioning the acres. So the acres that are on next to your parcel are actually the acres that's on CAUV. So anything that's in right-of-way, or if you have a home site, we designate 1 acre to that, or if you're less than 10, it'll definitely show less than what you are needed. So if you have any questions, you can give me a call. Then they also ask for the income. So if you have less than 10 acres, you have to, of course, provide income every year. And then I think it's number 5, yes or no, underneath that first table is if your general operations are changing this year. So if you guys are going for hay, you're going to put it in pasture, we'd like to know so it's easier to inspect. Number 6, I know a lot of you guys had some questions about when it asks for breakdown of acreage. Next year, if it doesn't, this form does not change, I'd like to send out a kind of like a dummy sheet to kind of help you out. Yes, this is a state form. They changed it 2 years ago because there's some conservation stuff that did pass. Really, you only need to fill that out if you have acres in a conservation program or conservation practice. And you'll need a map for that information as well. Also,
for example, or some other type of special assessment. Having an ag district defers the assessments on agricultural district farmland, excluding the homestead. So essentially for that acre of your home, it does not defer the assessment, but for everything else, you are deferred until the land is changed to another use. So until you stop farming, for example, or something else happens with the land, or you're withdrawn from the agricultural district. So essentially, if a sewer goes through your front, let's say 30, 40 acres, you only pay that assessment on your home acreage. So that's a huge benefit that, if you're a farmer and your land just happens to be right along the road, for example, that could be very costly. And this is one of the reasons why it's a benefit. And the final one, and I found this one really interesting, it provides greater scrutiny for eminent domain acquisitions. So if you're in an ag district and the government comes in and encourages for eminent domain, you actually, if the eminent domain is used on 10 acres, so if they are requiring about 10 acres of your property or 10% of your total agricultural land, the law actually allows that the state director of agriculture has to review that eminent domain application request. So it goes all the way up, her name is Kathy Plander right now, or Dorothy Plander right now, to the state agriculture director, and she has to approve that eminent domain application. So that's quite a bit more review and time process, and there's a big protection for anyone interested in preventing eminent domain on your property. Oh. Application process. So very similar to the CAUV, you file the application with us. It's pretty much just an administrative application. If you're already on CAUV, it's just a fun rubber stamp. If you're not on CAUV, we may take a little bit of a closer look just to make sure, just like with the CAUV application, that you're following the guidelines. But we review that very similarly. And we'll provide, once you're accepted into the agriculture district, written notice to you saying such. Now, how many of you live in Conneaut, or Geneva, or Ashtabula, or Andover? There's a few of you. So if you live in a municipality, and this is kind of uncharted territory for us, we're actually working with Coshocton and with a few other counties to see how best they do it. If you live in a municipality, you actually have to get approval from that village council or the city government. They have to legislatively approve your application. So your process is a little bit differently, and we can walk you through that. We've already started conversations with Conneaut, especially is the big one. Andover, I didn't realize as much, but we'll reach out to them too. So you would actually apply, you can get the application through Heather, through our office, we'll walk you through it, but you would actually send it to the municipality for their city council to approve, and they would send it to us. That's just another step in the process that the state mandates if you live in a municipality or a village. They can deny or conditionally accept based on their wishes. There is no kind of set standards for what they have to pass or not pass. And then once the application is approved, the ag district is in effect from the date of application for 5 years. So CAUV, you have to apply every year. The ag district in this case is actually good for 5 years. That's a pretty good time. So there are some folks actually who we found out didn't realize they were on it because they had applied so long ago. And we're happy to help you if you have questions on that. So renewal, so after that 5 years, it expires from the date of the application, and we keep track of all of that. So we'll mail notices along with CAUV mails for renewal. Very likely you're on CAUV already, so we'll just slip a little note in there saying, hey, don't forget this is the year you've got to reapply. Renewals are due anytime after the first Monday in January during the first year, the 5th year, I apologize. Now, if we don't get your renewal though, by the first Monday in March, which is also that CAUV deadline, we'll notify you that you haven't renewed yet. And if you don't renew by the end of the year, then we'll be taking you, I apologize. If you don't renew by the first Monday in April, we'll be taking you off of the ag district. So there's a couple of steps, and we'll absolutely make sure to give you a call, follow up in between that time frame. You'll know that your 5 years is up in terms of that. Now what happens, and here's some of the penalties. So if you decide not to renew, if you miss that application, you're good, nothing happens. It's just a process that kind of finishes itself off. You may decide, hey, I'm not going to reapply this year for whatever reason, and that's perfectly fine. Now, if you're in an ag district and you're in CUV, for example, and something, either you change your farming operation or you no longer qualify for CUV or for ag district, there is a penalty assessed. And that penalty is 1/4 the penalty assessed under the CUV program. So Heather or whoever in our office would calculate the recoupment and the penalty for choosing to remove your land or for being taken off of CUV or the ag district. Yes?
So there's a recoupment from the ag district that you get no discount on anything for?
There's a penalty, yep, for whatever reason the state thought we want people to stay in it. So this is definitely something to be aware of. Of course, we want to make sure that you know some of the upsides and some of the downsides, but it's 1/4 of the assessed penalty under that CUV program.
That's in addition to, right?
Correct. So, any questions on the ag districts? And Heather probably can help answer some of them as well.
Actually, you're lucky. There's no application fee for the ag district or for the renewal.
Since you know the price of the
Mr.
land
Huey.
by the quality of
We have a question up here. Go ahead.
if you know the price per acre by the quality of the acreage, do you have any idea what, like wooded or croplands, what the cost would be?
The question is, let's say you're on an ag district and for whatever reason you either choose to come off or you're taken off, and you're looking at what would be the difference between like a woodland, for example, versus traditional crop for that 1/4 penalty.
Right.
Would you know off? It really probably varies property to property, and we can
Well,
we
you
can
said
talk
you
about that.
knew what everything cost by the type of the properties. That's why I'm giving you woodland and cropland.
Well, it depends on what type of crop, or not crop, I'm sorry, soil is on your property. So it depends, some soils are worth more than others. So it really depends how many acres of that particular soil type you have as to what you're saving or what the recoupment would be.
And we can talk to you about your exact specific property, what the cost would be, even for normal CUV, and what our recoupment could be, or what your actual savings are. We'd be more than happy to talk with you about that too. Yes. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So this is in regards to the second benefit with assessments and deferred assessments. So say you moved onto a farmland that the utility was already on the street, so there was water, and you want to connect to that water, but you have a huge frontage. Does that 1 acre help in any way for the homestead to connect for the assessment fee?
That's a good question. And now comes my time where I can say there'll be some questions that'll stump us. And if you, I'm happy to say that. And if you want to, well, I've got your contact info. But if you have other questions or other things that we may not know the answer to, I'm more than happy to send you an email or give you a call tomorrow. Mandy.
Can you just repeat that question? I didn't hear.
Sure. So let's say you move into a property where farm is on the road, there's already water there, and you'd like to hook up to the water line, and whatever assessment or fee you're paid, does that actually go into effect here, where it's decreased based on your frontage and whatever the calculations are? It will really, my guess, is probably depend on what that local entity's setup is, and there's different fees for different, if you're sitting in the county versus to a city and type of thing. But that's something that we'll research and get back to you on. Any questions like that, we'll also post on our website, on the county auditor's site for you to go back and answer. Yes, sir.
I can tell you if you're on Route 45, the tap-in fee is $5,000 to tap into the city water.
He said the tap-in fee on Route 45, and I don't know the for sure, $5,000. So you can see that could be a big savings. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Who does the protection come from?
Who does the protection come from for nuisance suits? So that's another way that you or your lawyer could put in defense. Essentially, you can share, number one, if
If
you're
you get any help, you just give.
That's in the
yeah, it's a legal defense that you can
My
use.
second question would be, why, if it's it's so close to CAUV, why isn't it just part of CAUV?
So the question is, if this is so close to CAUV, why would an ag district with that protection be a part of CAUV? And that's a very good question. The state sets apart in the Ohio Revised Code 2 different options for farmers to either have separate or to have combined. There may be folks, and it kind of goes back to the idea of some of the penalties. Perhaps you get extra benefits, but there are extra penalties also. But that's a great suggestion that, you know, I would agree with you on. You should be able to use that as a
Let's
fence.
put some paperwork on it, you know?
Yeah,
You have to
absolutely.
have it up and-
We can save some trees. Yes, sir.
Can you be an ag district without being on CAUV?
So the question is, can you be in an ag district without being on CAUV? Yes.
I-
Yep. So the requirements are the same, but you do not have to be on CAUV to be in the ag district. Yes, sir.
If we file for the ag district through the city of Conneaut, and they deny or modify it, what recourse do we have if they deny it?
So the question is, this gentleman lives in the city of Conneaut, and if they apply and the city either denies or modifies the application, what recourse do they have? We're not aware of any recourse or any way that you can alter that. It's considered by our office more of an administrative task, because likely you're on CUV and it's just a simple thing. If the city changes or denies, that's a very good question that we'll look into as well. Hopefully they don't. Yes, sir.
A lot of things seem to be hinged on the soil value,
Yes.
soil types. Is there some place where I can go to better understand that?
Yes, the question is, and that goes back to the formula for CUV, 3,500 soil types in the state. I don't know offhand how many in our county we have. My guess is roughly 1,000. And so where can you go for more information on the actual soil types?
I've it out myself,
Yeah.
go ahead and file paperwork, that way I know exactly what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so I mean, I was gonna say first, if you're on CAUV, you can go onto our website and under there will be a CAUV spot to click on. It'll actually show you what type of soils are on your property and how many acres they are and what the value is. Now, if you're looking to figure out a
Well,
new
wouldn't I
one,
establish that? Because I would be rotating crops between hay, corn to break up the soil, back to hay again. It's not much, maybe some vegetables, but.
right, and that will change the soil. These soil types were done years and years and years ago, back when they mapped the entire, county. Which you can go onto our website and you can look to see where the soils are. But if you want to know more about mapping them out, I do have a list of what the soil types are. It's a pretty thick book.
Well, actually, what I'd like to do is find out, I'd like to do the calculations myself as far as the value, what you place value on. And then on the bottom, the last one was, well, we figured to a mortgage at 40% equity with, 60%. I have no idea what you guys are talking about there.
Right.
But
Now,
I
if
want to be
you,
able to wrap my head around what they're talking about.
yeah, and if you are on CEV, I can easily look up your property and say, hey, this is how much you saved on the property. I can do that for anybody. If anybody's curious as to, hey, unfortunately it doesn't show on your tax bill, how much you're saving with all the soils on your property. I can actually go into our system and I can look and say, hey, this is how much you saved last year, in the last 3 years, and of course it'll change every 3 years. But if you do want to try to calculate it out, I can kind of help you and show you the websites and kind of where to do that, to do it yourself, if you're looking at a new property. But if it's already on it, I can show you where to find all that information as well.
Yes, sir.
Just to kind of help him out, if you go right up the street up here, go to the soil and water office, tell him your address, they'll tell you in 5 minutes what soil type you have.
Yep, Nate Paskey with Soil and Water, and that's a great example of if you contact our office, we can kind of direct you either in the county or to the state of folks that would be great to talk to. He'll go out to your property, look at it, so he's a great resource, absolutely. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir.
Under the ag district compared to the CAUV, would the savings be the same?
So there is no extra savings, and the question is, under ag district versus CUV, are the savings the same? So under an ag district, you do not receive any tax savings, unlike with the CUV program. So the ag district program are extra benefits that we discussed, the nuisance, the assessments, and then what was the third one?
The litigation.
Litigation, thank you. So those are some of the three. There is no extra tax benefit, though, to the ag district program itself. So the question is, if you have multiple parcels that are not connected, and you file for an ag district or for CUV, does it include all the parcels?
Well, for ag district purposes, as long as you write down, it asks what your parcel numbers are. As long as it's the same owner, I think as long as you write all those parcel numbers down, that'll be fine. For CAUV purposes, as long as it's identical ownership, you write all those down, and if they're not connecting it, you just have to make sure that each property is gonna qualify. It depends, I'm not sure if you're talking like down the road, in another township. Sometimes, you just have to make sure that they're gonna qualify as a whole. So if you may have 5 acres on a parcel, and then in another county, you got another 5 acres, you just have to make sure that it's gonna qualify on its own, because it's not adjoining. I hope that answers your question.
While you're filling out any of the applications, you can always give our office Heather a call, and she'll walk you right through it for sure. Yes, Mr. Fowler?
So agricultural district is only for the property owner, not for, let's say, rented ground, but it's not protecting you against, nuisance on rented ground.
So the question is, ag districts, do they only help the property owner, or do they also help the renter who may be farming the property? So the benefits to the ag districts, really, I guess, in a sense, you could say, because the property owner would be protected or would be able to do certain things that then the farmer who's on that property, he would be getting benefits as well. But it's really more geared towards the actual property itself. And we'll move on now to Dennis Huey and to the reval. We wanted to touch on a few of these topics. How many folks have heard about the 2020 reval here in the county, about some of the things, like a couple? All right, good. We, starting up on Friday, we'll be having a tab to its own page on our website. It's a big process that Dennis is going to talk about, and something that will be affecting all of us here.
Thank you, David. Well, I'm the last presenter tonight, and I asked him earlier, I said, is it because I'm the best that I'm the last? He said, no, you're the oldest. With regard to the 2020 revaluation, the state of Ohio requires every auditor in the state, every 6 years, to revalue all the parcels in their counties. And it says here that the last reappraisal was effective for tax year 2014, and of course was collected in tax year 2015. So this is that a rain? Okay.
Is that a good thing? Happy?
No.
No?
So right now, we have appraisers in the field. We've contracted with an appraisal firm to come and do the 80,000 parcels. You see, that's quite a few parcels. We had a homeschool group here today, and they were amazed that we had 80,000 tracts of land in our county. But anyway, the appraisal firm Integrity out of Youngstown area is coming, and they're working, I think right now, in Pine-Tuning Valley School District to reevaluate the values of property in the county. They're starting in the southern tier townships and going to work north until they get to the lake. So the revaluation will be effective as of next year for the year 2020, and of course the monies will be collected in year 2021. The nice thing about it is that once you have found out what your the value of your property is, you will have all of the year 2020 to contact the auditor's office, and if there's any concerns about your value, or if we're missing something on your property, or we've overstated something inadvertently, you have a chance to meet with us and make some determinations as to what your values may be. The CAUV rates are set by the state of Ohio. We don't set those, and I think they brought that out earlier. It's set by the state of Ohio. The land that is underneath the program for CAUV is set by them. We will value the remainder, which would be your home site and any buildings associated with it, or any excess land that is not under the CAUV program. And the nice thing is, from what our understanding is, that the CAUV rates will be lower. We're to expect a decrease in values for this coming year. The reevaluation values will be finished by 2020, and of course, as I said a moment ago, we will have all of that year to talk to you, to discuss and see what your concerns are about this. The
Yes, please.
Do they mail out to us what it was prior to 2023 down, and what you come up with?
So that's a great question. So when he asked, do we mail out to residents what the prior value was and then what the value will be after 2020? Previously, no. This year, we'll be doing postcards. We'll be doing mailings to businesses and to residents to share with them what that new value is. As Dennis had mentioned, we have to have to the state by 2020 our kind of predictive values, whatever set by our office and Integrity, the appraisal firm. And then we've got all of 2020 to work with residents and business owners to try and set them a little bit more based on what your responses are. So we have until October of next year, and that's why postcards will be going out. You'll be seeing lots in the paper as well. We want to have as many conversations with you as possible on those. Yes, sir.
Do you have any parameters on how buildings are, because a lot of buildings we have depreciated just because you put a new metal roof on it, you're 50 years old, and the value is the same as something you built last year?
Yeah, the question is, do we have any parameters on age of buildings or of condition of buildings in terms of how our appraisal, Dennis, do you want to speak a little bit about master?
We, as far as how we, trying to sound like an auctioneer. Anyway, as far as the value of buildings, we do have a rating system where we look at a building and depending upon the age or the condition, some older buildings may have been renovated, newer buildings may be of inferior quality, so you may see a condition rating of good, average, fair, poor. Some buildings have no value. And keep in mind that when the appraisal company comes by your property, in most cases they're looking at it from the road. Now sometimes they may have to pull off the road to get a better look for buildings or improvements that are not clearly visible from the street. So there is a rating system, and as you know, if you have some older, say, farm buildings on your property, or if there's an older farmhouse on the property that is not being occupied, how it was valued and viewed 6 or 7 years ago may be entirely different than what it is today. It may be improved, or it may be, we've had cases recently where the building is just removed from the record. Yes, sir.
Also, a lot of the farmers have not used their upright saddles, but everybody likes to put a value on it. If the guy drives by and says, you have these new saddles, you're not using them anymore, but, you don't want to go to the expense of trying to tear it down, or how do you tear down a poor silo?
Right, well, that makes sense, and you're right, some silos, when I was doing appraisals in the field, you can see some silos that haven't been used for 20 or 30 years. And that's what, we can't always see and make the determination if it is being used or not. That's where it pays to call our office and talk to our appraisal staff. We have in-house appraiser, we have a chief appraiser, myself, I've been an appraiser in the field. If you have a building like that you believe is overrated, give us a call, because Mike or I will come out. We may not have to come out. Sometimes somebody brings we had a property that we just totally devalued the home, or almost devalued it, because we saw pictures of the home, we saw interior pictures. The old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. If you bring me 10 or 15 pictures and show me a property that's in distress, that's pretty clear. But if you have, say, a silo or another building that you don't agree with as far as the condition, contact us. We'll send somebody out, take a look at it, and if it's not something that's functional, if it's an unfunctional building, you're right, it does not present value. Yes.
So I know, and this might be the last time I'm from Southern Ohio, I just raise cattle, but grain bins are not able to be taxed as real property value. So they consider silos as your grain bin?
Well, I haven't seen grain bins on a lot of those.
I'll find out.
Interesting. Okay.
One quick comment too. So some counties don't actually look at every property. We in our county looked at every single 80,000 parcels, either on the road or in person. So sometimes we do miss things, and that's why next year is a great example for that. Yes, I had a hand over. Wendy, you said.
Once again, are you going to let us know what it was before this evaluation?
Yep. So there'll be two things. On the website, we actually can go back, you yourself can go back 5 years, and then we can actually take you back. We've got some fun records from 1835, I think, here in our county. Denise is laughing because she got some of it on her shoes yesterday. But you're more than welcome. We can walk you through that too. But yeah, we can let you know however far back your values were. And we'll do our best to send as many postcards out as possible. Of course, there's an expense to that, and so we want to weigh your taxpayer dollars versus informing you as well. But everything will be on our website or a phone call away. Yes, Fred?
Can you ask the inspectors to notify the landowners if they have to come on, especially deep into the property, when they can't see the buildings from the road? I think that's important for the safety of the inspector and for the security.
Oh, absolutely.
Dennis has some fun stories.
I have some very fun stories. Some of them weren't fun.
No, that was actually my first question when I met with the appraisal firm was how do we know that as a property owner that this person is a bona fide folks with the county or what's that process? And so one, all the cars will have magnets on the side with our magnets, contact information. Two, they'll all have name badges as well. Three, they have vests. Four, they actually have been instructed to knock on the door before they go on the property or take a look at a barn, for example, because I'm right there with you. I'm leery for a good number of reasons of people going on other folks' property. Of course, we're doing it ideally in your best interest, but we will make sure that your contact is well. So we'll knock, and then also, and a few township folks here, we actually have reached out either to the police or to the village council people or to the township trustees before we go into an area, letting them know we're coming, please inform your residents too, and then we'll keep you updated wherever we are on our website also. But that was my number one concern, was how are we informing folks, what's the process with this, and so we try to be as forthcoming and as quick as possible to get the information out. This is a great example of that.
The appraisers we use now are very professional, and they respect your property, and all they're trying to do is to do their job.
Yes, ma'am.